because it snowed again on Wednesday. Come on, clouds. Anyway, we are on this adventure. We're calling it Odyssey this entire semester, and we've talked about how we were created to be on an Odyssey. We've talked about how he's made us worth it to be on this Odyssey. We talked about Jesus, who is our guide and has invited us to life with him. And today we're going to really talk about what that is, that invitation that Jesus gives us to live life with him, which is super cool. And so it all has to do with learning. Okay? All has to do with learning. I don't know about you, but I love to learn. I love space. I love computers. I love weather, even when it snows. I really love snow, but just not on Wednesdays. I love snow. I love learning about different things, and I got this from my parents. My dad is especially curious. He just loves learning, and I just grew up in that environment, and so I love to learn. I mean, my dad, if he gets on something, he'll buy like 20 books, and he'll just fill up his car and drive with them everywhere, and he'll read them all, and he's like, okay, I think I understand it, and then he'll get on another topic and do the same thing. He just loves to learn. And what I think is cool about our expedition, this Odyssey, is that learning is a central part of this. It's a central part about what it means to be human. I think about this with my daughter, Lydia. She is learning a new word every day. Now, granted, I mean, when she says quack and cat, it sounds the same, but she's learning. She's learning how things fit together. Oh my goodness, the other day, just last night actually, we had this book and she pointed to a sheep and went, bah! Now, I don't know if she actually was saying bah, like a sheep, or if she was just doing what she normally does and she calls all of us bah until she gets what she wants. But anyway, I thought it was super cool. So Jesus has invited us to learn from him. And what I think is so awesome about that is that he wants us to be a part of this life. He's not just saying, hey, let me guide you like from afar. He wants us to walk with him. There's this really cool passage in Matthew 11. Okay, Matthew 11, starting in verse 28. Jesus says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now, if you're like me and you read that passage, you're kind of like, what, a yolk? Like an egg yolk? That's weird. You want me to put an egg on my head and then follow you? No. That's not what he means. But that's what I thought when I read it the first time. Jesus is talking about an image that people would have used a ton 2,000 years ago. Okay, so let me show you what he means. This is a yoke. Okay, here you go. This is a yoke. Cool. And so it was used for animals because you didn't have tractors and stuff on your farm. You had to plow everything by hand, or maybe you were rich enough that you had 2 oxen, that you could use to plow everything for you, or you'd have horses, donkeys, whatever, and you would hook them together with a yoke. You put one ox on one side of the yoke, and then you put another ox on the other side of the yoke, and they would plow. Now, you also had this other issue, is if you had a new ox that didn't know how to plow the right way, you had to teach them. Ox are strong, so you couldn't just shove him the way that you want him to go. You had to do something. So what they would do is they would take a mature ox. I need a mature ox. Bird, come here. I need a mature ox. What you do is you would take a mature ox and you would hook him up here to the yoke, and then you'd take your immature ox. Come here, immature ox.
Ooh.
And you'd hook him there, and the immature ox would buck and do all kinds of stuff. And in fact, just let me show you. It's pretty hilarious.
Moo. Move.
Moo.
Moo.
Oh, oxen. Funny. So, this is what a yoke is. So you'd have the mature ox that would train the younger ox on what it meant to be an ox, to pull for the farmer. That's what you do. Now, so you had that image, so everybody understood that for a yoke. But then when Jesus would say, "Take my yoke upon me," he's not saying, "Hey, you bunch of animals." He's saying a term that people used for a type of teaching. So the word yoke was like a form of somebody's thoughts. It was, this is my teaching, my yoke. And so in that passage, he says that you take my yoke upon me. So the Jews had this saying that the Old Testament was kind of like a yoke. And to obey God's teaching in the Old Testament was to put that yoke, that teaching on top of you, and to submit to it and obey it and walk with it on you, that you would carry it. So a bunch of other rabbis, which is a fancy term for teachers 2,000 years ago, they all had these different yokes, and they would say, I want my yoke to be on you. Now, Jesus says the same thing, so everybody be familiar with it, but his yoke is different because he says, take my yoke upon you, for I am gentle, and he says that my yoke is easy and light. Now, I don't know about you, but when you hear the teachings of Jesus, the first word to me is never easy. It's hard to love your neighbors. It's really hard to not fight back when somebody fights you. It's really, really hard to not make promises you can't keep. It's really hard to always try to do the right thing, to be honest, full of integrity. That's hard stuff. Jesus isn't saying that his teaching is easy and like anybody can do it just like willy-nilly, no thought to it. He's saying it's easy in the sense of it's like a comfort to you. It's gentle. It's not a hardship. His teaching is not oppressive to you. So he's saying, come and learn from me. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me. Now, what I love about this image is it's not just that Jesus is going to say, hey, go put this yoke on you, and you have to carry around all these teachings, and you just have to try to do your best to follow them. No. The yoke image is that he's pulling it, and he's inviting us to pull with him. He's training us every step of the way. That's pretty cool. I don't know about you, but I want to be a part of that yoke. He's the one pulling the weight. We're just joining him in it. I mean, think about this. What we've been talking about in this whole Odyssey series is that we were made on purpose to be a part of this Odyssey, to be a part of this journey. And not only does Jesus say, hey, I want to guide you, he's in it with us. And he's saying, come with me, come with me. Now, what does that look like? It looks like us following how Jesus would live if he were living in our shoes. That he sat in the classes that you sit in. He hung out with the friends that you hang out with. He had your parents. He was on your sports teams. And he's saying, hey, this is how I would live in these situations. That's how I want you to live in these situations. Come and learn from me. Come and learn this better way of life. Really, he's saying, I'm inviting you to live the way you were made to live. Inviting you on this incredible journey to go, wow, I can learn to live like Jesus. Paul just says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. When we follow Jesus, we can be an example to other people to show what it looks like to be on this expedition, to be on this journey. And so as we end, I want you to think about, what are 5 things of Jesus' teaching that you could really live out? That you could live out really well, that it would be like the essential part of your yoke, of the yoke of Jesus that you're living. And that it can be an example for everyone that you come into contact with. That'd be pretty cool. And I hope that you share with one of us or your small group leader tonight, and you can text us or on Instagram or whatever, and we'll try to respond as fast as we can. This is a really cool invitation to learn from God, to learn how to live life with Jesus, walking along with him. See you guys. See you next week. Hopefully it doesn't snow.